Welcome to Back to Freedom's Escaping the Clutches of Big Tech, Part 1A. If you haven't watched the first part yet, you'll find it linked below. In the month since I first posted Part 1, a number of you have pointed out that I missed three important aspects of de-Googling your life and generally getting away from the big tech mass surveillance systems. So I've decided to complete the list of alternative products and services with this supplemental video. First up, you asked about alternatives for social media platforms like Facebook and Zitter. It's no secret that the social giants systematically spy on their users on a 24/7 basis. Ostensibly, this is done to craft more effective advertising systems that provide targeted, relevant ads according to individual user preferences. This is a lie which even the most stubborn normies are finally beginning to see through. The real reason behind Big Tech's wholesale spying operation is much darker and sinister than trying to sell you the perfect purse, watch, or hotel stay. What the tech giants, including Google, are doing with their data harvesting operation is nothing less than the sophisticated psychological profiling of all their users. Knowledge is power. The spy in your pocket has spent years gathering information about you, down to the very last detail, including your most intimate moments, which it listens to, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you what that means. And that's just what your smartphone does right out of the box, before all the additional spying and psychological profiling you permit apps like Facebook and X to carry out with your full consent. Fun fact, the current pro-Palestine protests were predicted, tracked, and spied on by the X app through its partnership with the data miner platform, whose job it ostensibly is to identify breaking news, but whose actual purpose is to identify, locate, and associate dissident voices with other like-minded dissident individuals for later action by authorities. There's a link in the video description if you're interested. But what are the alternatives? Well, if you're looking for absolute no-holds-barred free speech, there's only a single site left which truly fits that description: gab.com. Much vilified by the mass media and banned across most of the European Union for overstepping arbitrarily enforced hate speech laws, Gab is all about free speech absolutism, which is to say, if your speech is protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, it's protected by Gab. To be sure, the platform is not for the faint-hearted, because most people have been conditioned to self-censor by traditional social media to the point where truly unfettered free speech seems alien and often inappropriate to them. Add to that the fact that the natives of Gab are not universally friendly, especially when the information they post is challenged by newcomers who spout mainstream sound bites, and what you have is basically a social minefield. But seriously, don't let that dissuade you from checking Gab out. Once you get reacquainted with truly free speech and you decondition yourself from the self-censorship that's been pushed on you since Zuckerberg opened the doors of Facebook back in 2004, you'll find Gab to be a mine of truly amazing information compiled by a community of high-grade researchers who are actual subject matter experts in all kinds of taboo topics, ranging from alternative medicine to world history. If you'd like to know a little more, there's an excellent introductory post which I'll link to in the description to this video. Next up, Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. This is actually quite a tricky one, since the vast majority of alternative web browsers today, including Microsoft's Edge, are built on Google's Chromium codebase. And any browser built on that codebase, even Brave, automatically tracks a certain amount of information about its usage and sends it back to the Google mothership. So, again, what are the alternatives? The most commonly cited alternative is something called ungoogled Chromium. But this name is something of a misnomer, because while ungoogled Chromium does reduce tracking and data transmission back to Google, it does so in an almost half-hearted manner. I've linked to it in the description to this video for the sake of completeness, but I'm honestly not a massive fan of this thing. There are only two real contenders when it comes to Chrome alternatives. First up is Mullvad. Unlike the vast majority of popular Chrome alternatives, Mullvad is not built on the Chromium base. Instead, this browser uses the Tor backbone, which gives it considerable privacy and anonymity advantages even over more private Chromium browsers like Brave. For starters, there's no browsing history being kept, no cookies saved, and all tracking codes from URLs are stripped out by default. But most importantly, Mullvad has no telemetry. Okay, chances are you don't actually know what that means, so I'll break it down briefly. Telemetry is the browser quietly logging how it runs on your machine and shipping that information back to its home base. Google does it, Microsoft does it, Brave does it, and so do most of the other Chromium-based iterations. Big Tech swears that it's anonymous and not about tracking your personal browsing habits at all. But don't kid yourself. Even if it's focused on the browser's performance, this stuff will paint a really detailed picture of you as time passes. Here's what they can collect. First up, crashes and errors. Sounds harmless, right? Oh, the browser froze, let's fix that. But each report can include timestamps, your OS version, hardware specs, or even what extensions you're running on your browser. This builds a detailed fingerprint of your setup, which could be combined with other data from your OS or the web to track anonymous browser activity back to your actual identity. It also tracks usage stats. This keeps chart of how often you open tabs, how often you use features like incognito mode, or even how long your browsing sessions last. Big Tech claims that it's to optimize performance, but this data reveals highly defined patterns in your behavior. Are you a night owl? Do you hammer the search bar a lot? Big Tech loves patterns. It's how they profile users for ads, or for AI training, or even worse, for sharing data with governments or their partners. Then there are performance metrics. Things like page load times, memory usage, that sort of thing. Again, innocent, right? Maybe, until you realize it might indirectly expose what kinds of sites you're hitting, like, slow loads on encrypted sites versus plain ones, or your internet speed, which again ties back to your location or ISP. And finally, that data is not always 100% anonymized. Reports can include unique IDs tied to your browser installation, or snippets of what's happening on your screen. In a world where data breaches happen weekly and companies like Google have been fined billions for privacy violations, do you really trust them? But now back to Mulvad. Mulvad also has a built-in ad blocker and is fingerprint resistant. Okay, you probably don't know what that means either, so let me explain browser fingerprinting to you as well. Browser fingerprinting is like telemetry's evil twin. It's a tracking technique that doesn't rely on storing data on your device the way cookies are stored. Instead, it passively gathers info that your browser automatically shares when you visit a site. Things like your screen resolution, the color depth of your screen, your device type, is it a laptop, is it a PC, or a phone, its CPU class, and operating system version, as well as your browser version, IP address, language preferences, and a bunch more metrics. Have you ever noticed how websites automatically detect your language and time zone? That is a part of fingerprinting. All this data is combined into a hash, which is a sort of digital signature that's as unique as your actual fingerprint. Trackers use this to identify you across sessions, sites, and even devices. It's been around since the early 2010s, but it's gotten far more sophisticated with AI and machine learning, thus making it harder to dodge. The scary part? It's invisible. There are no pop-ups, no opt-outs in your face. Your browser just hands over the goods because that's how the standard web HTTP protocol works. Sites need some basic info to load properly. Now back to Mulvad again. The Mulvad browser forces secure connections whenever possible and runs in private, incognito mode by default. It's also designed to work through a VPN as standard and will warn you when you're not using one. Mulvad is built for privacy and anonymity from the ground up in a way that no standard Chromium-based browser will ever be. Which brings me to Iridium. Iridium is the only Chromium-based browser I use with the expectation of any kind of privacy, because it's no longer truly Chromium-based. Instead of simply taking the existing Chromium codebase and using it as is, the Iridium development team has created its own fork of the code, which is to say, they've turned their browser into a completely separate animal from the other Chromium browsers out there. Not only has Iridium stripped Google's telemetry and phone home components from its code, it's also added some heavy-duty privacy components. Like Mulvad, Iridium does not store cookies and it deletes all temporary content the instant you close the browser or a tab. But crucially, it also does not use DNS prediction. Yeah, okay, I'll explain that too. This one's actually much simpler than the last two. DNS prediction is your browser predicting which domains or links you might need next and performing the DNS lookup ahead of time before you even click or request anything. This can be done through analyzing your browsing history or via AI-based usage prediction. It can also be done through link analysis of the page you're currently visiting. Clever stuff. However it's done, the resulting data can enable user tracking and reveal browsing interests and patterns to providers like your ISP or third parties. Partners again of big tech. I'll get into that one in a separate video. But this in turn can contribute to browser fingerprinting and profile building without your direct interaction. But back to Iridium. The resulting browser is only marginally less private than Mullvad, with the major advantage that it retains Chromium's universal compatibility with current web standards, as well as the ability to install and run browser extensions from the Chrome Web Store. Right, I think that covers it all on the browser front. Let me know in the comments if anything is unclear or if there's anything I've missed. Last up, big tech cloud storage like Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. As I mentioned before, all big tech providers will actively scan your files for illegal, criminal, or harmful content. This means that nothing you upload to their cloud storage is ever truly private. With that said, nothing you upload anywhere on the web is ever truly private, no matter where you put it. If you want some measure of actual privacy, talk to us about encrypted local data storage and data backups. There are, however, less terrible cloud storage providers than Google, Microsoft, or Amazon. And among these, the one I've trusted for years is Mediafire. Based in Shenandoah, Texas, Mediafire is a small independent cloud storage provider with a typically Texan approach to privacy. Confidentiality is assured, and the company's terms of service are enforced by local Texas law, with all other third-party legislation rejected. I've also tested this provider for covert user file scanning on a couple of occasions. Mediafire has come up clean both these times. As I've said above, nothing you upload to the cloud will ever be 100% private, but Mediafire does try its hardest to keep it so. And that's it for De-Google Your Life Part 1A. Keep a lookout for future videos. This channel is about to get a whole lot more active as we're building the Back to Freedom site. And for more privacy and security news and advice, visit backtofreedom.co. Until next time.